Welcome to another episode of NK's Conversations, and this time we are going to discuss the challenges that industry is facing when they start again. Now we are in phase 4 of the lockdown, where most of the industries have been allowed to open, except in the containment zones. The barber shops are open, and if you'd like to have your haircut, you can go ahead and do it. Of course, the price is a little higher. That's what I gathered yesterday. There are challenges for industry when they open up. There are challenges of labor, the availability of labor. There are challenges of finance, the availability of finance, and also the payments to their suppliers and to their employees. And there are challenges of the consumer. From where can the consumer buy your products? Does he have money in his pocket? These are the questions that I would like to ask a very eminent panel that I have today. And this eminent panel consists of, first of all, Mr. D.B. Mehta. He is a former Indian Revenue Service officer. He has worked 10 years in the IRS in senior positions. So he is familiar with the workings of the government. He is now the group chairman of Allegro, which is a real estate developing company. He is the chairman of CRIDAI Mangalore and chairman of IGBC Mangalore. He is an independent director of the Mangalore Smart City Limited, so he is very much involved with the city's development. And he is also a governing board council member of CRIDAI Karnataka. He was the past president of the Mangalore Stock Exchange Limited and the KBA. Welcome to the show, Mr. Mehta. We also have Mr. Isaac Vass, the president of the Canberra Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He is the vice president of the Canberra Industries Association. He is a director of the MSEZ and Merger Beverages Private Limited and director of MCF Employees Cooperative Society Limited. He is the past honorary secretary of the Mangalore Club and the past assistant governor for Rotary International. And welcome to the show, Isaac. He will give us the ground reality picture as it stands today in Dakshina Kannada. And of course, we have a practicing chartered accountant, Kiran Vasant. He is a senior partner at the KNDC and Associates LLP, Chartered Accountants. He has been practicing since 30 years. So he is also a past chairman of the Mangalore branch of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Now, as a chartered accountant, obviously, he'll be familiar with all the laws, the loopholes of the laws, and and of course the tax provisions, how they have been amended, what are the facilities that are being afforded to industry currently by the latest packages announced by the finance minister and the prime minister. So we have a very robust panel to discuss these issues. Let me start by asking Isaac, what is the ground reality in terms of labor, finances and consumption at Dakshina Kannada, mainly in the Baikampadi real estate area where it's I think the major area for industry in Bangalore. Isaac.
Yeah, Brad, see, first thing that we should understand is India went through the strictest of lockdown world over. Any country has not been so strict as India. Even China, for that matter, only Wuhan and then later the Hubei province was under the kind of lockdown that we went to, not the entire China. So then this is a sovereign lockdown. It is not a demand and supply issues where businesses are not able to or failing or not doing well. It's imposed on us. Now, there is no press button solution or businesses won't come back overnight. The businesses industries are limping back to normalcy. Now, tourism completely shut down. There are so many tourism agencies that are functioning in Mangalore with a lot of employment. They have heavy overheads. They are completely shut down. They are no hopes of coming back in the short run, and they are already wound up. Restaurants, bars and restaurants also included, are completely shut down. Their labor is unemployed. They are finding it very difficult to make ends meet. Theaters, again, a number of standalone theaters, also multiplexes, are totally shut down. Malls are not functioning, beaches are not functioning, advertisement industries in doldrums. These industries are not even able to open. Forget about limping back to normalcy. Now you can understand the new newspapers are becoming thinner by the day because no advertisement. So even that industry is going through very, very bad phase. MSMEs, see, MSMEs have a huge supply chain problem. They are not able to get their raw material or their parts or things like that overnight. So they are, at the same time, there's no labor. So basically, please remember, MSMEs is the backbone of Dakshina Kannada. We are having 1 lakh people working just in MSMEs. Now they are not able to, sustain, means Dakshina Kannada will go back 4 notches down. They buy in cash, particularly they buy from big companies their raw materials. For example, the packaging industry buys from Reliance. So they are not able to get money to buy. At the same time, they used to sell in credit. So they are got a double whammy. Their outstandings are not coming back. So this is the ground realities. Exports in from the chamber, we see that more than 60% exports were down during this period because there's no global demand. Migrant laborers are no longer with us. I get calls from people saying that we don't have people to load a container. So that is the position of migrant laborers. And there was a lot of informal sector which used to finance these MSMEs. That also is vanished. That ecosystem is just vanished. So bus owners, they're not able to, we had a very robust, I think only in India, we have this kind of robust bus, transport system for all the entire city, very efficient and privately owned and running very well. They are just not able to open or sustain with a cap of 30 passengers. So the entire scenery is bad. Taxis are not running. So you can imagine the sectors that are just not able to open, which are directly linked to our economy in Dakshina Kannada. So generally, what I feel is this is going to be a long haul. It looks like that demand may spurt for a little time once the lockdown opens, but it may still go and further down, and our economy may shrink. That is what I would like to feel. We should be ready for this.
Yeah, Mr. Mehta, in the building industry, your real estate industry, I think a lot of the construction work has come to a standstill. A lot of the projects are at a standstill. The Bangalore city projects, I think, are also at a standstill because of availability of labor. I think funds is not an issue there. But in the terms of the real estate industry, as far as I know, there is a lot of churning because the project finances are now in doldrums, and I think migrant labor is also not available at its full capacity as of now. What's the actual scenario, and how do you propose that it will get back to the normalcy?
See, let me start with a small positive note. We all know that the real estate industry was in a slowdown for the last 4 years. Now, you look at Mangalore real estate industry, CREDA has 75 members. And normally, any given year, there would be around 300 to 400 ongoing projects. Even if you take 4 projects per member. The slowdown was a blessing in disguise, as the number of ongoing projects were very few, and there the good news ends. We have almost around 100 ongoing projects. We were interacting with the district administration to allow us to start our projects immediately after the 3rd May lockdown, where construction industry was allowed with certain rules and restrictions. The district administration allowed us, but we had a problem with the labor availability. Now, it's not that the labor was not available in Mangalore at that point in time. Labor was sitting in Mangalore, but they just didn't want to work. They just wanted to go back. They were just waiting for the government to organize transport and to go back. So the labor, which normally works with the real estate developers, wages was not an issue because we wanted to hire them, and they were already, a lot of workers were in situ. They were at the sites, and others were with the contractors at the labor camp. So food was not a problem. Wages were not a problem. The only problem was they wanted to go back. And that was a mass hysteria which got created out of the COVID-19 fear. And we lost that opportunity. Now we understand the migrant laborers much better because we deal with them in our construction industry. Once they go back ahead of monsoon, they just don't come back till the month of September, because all these workers, they have some land back in the villages. They would like to cultivate their land, and they would like to harvest the crop and come back. And these are all rain-fed agriculture, so it's only one crop. The other worry which we have is a part of the stimulus package with the workers. The number of days in Manrega has increased. The amount that will be paid per day, that has been increased. So a question mark will always be there in the laborer's mind. If I am earning even 50 to 60% of what I earn in a city as a migrant worker, he would be happy in his village. So what we are worried about, A, the farming season, B, the Manrega number of days. So the availability of migrant labor will be absolutely nil for the next 5 to 6 months. That's what the construction industry is worried about. What we are able to retain are the workers who are on our payroll. Now there's a difference. They are not migrant workers. They are the workers who are locally available or settled down in Mangalore. Only with those workers we have to carry on with our activity. Now, like coming to the real estate industry, it has been very adversely impacted, both in terms of the execution part and the demand part. Now we all understand that real estate is a very high value purchase, and whenever demand starts picking up, it starts from the bottom of the pyramid. Real estate is sitting right on top of the pyramid. So for the next 6 months to 1 year, I don't think people will start looking at a very high value commitment in this times of uncertainty, and demand will be a huge casualty for us. And without the demand, real estate builders will run dry of liquidity. Already liquidity has been a major challenge. If you look at the stimulus package, it has done a lot to address the liquidity of A, the organized industry, B, the MSME. Real estate for the last few years has been funded by NBFCs. And NBFCs, apart from 50,000 and 20,000, totally 70,000 crores of funding in the stimulus package, nothing much has happened. Real estate industry itself needs 100,000 crores just to get itself started. And NBFC money is not going to flow back to the real estate businesses as of now. But NBFC, they cater to a lot of consumers and micro users also. So all this funding that has happened in the stimulus package will get directed towards them, and nothing may come to the real estate industry. The real estate industry's demand, even prior to COVID for the last 1 year, has been to come out with some kind of a loan restructuring, because most of the project execution was not happening, demand was not there. And post COVID, that demand has become very vocal now at even a tier 3 city level. That restructuring has to come back. This moratorium will not help the industry as such, because real estate projects normally are 3 years to 5 years projects. So giving a moratorium of 3 months and extended by another 3 months, 6 months is not going to help the construction industry. It definitely helps the manufacturing industry or the service industry, because the turnaround time is very short there. In real estate industry, it's a very long duration execution of projects, and the 6 months will be of not much help to the industry. So unless and until a good package comes from the government for A, restructuring the loans, B, giving a diktat to the banks to start funding the real estate developers. Banks have stopped funding the real estate developers for the last 3 to 4 years. So unless and until new money also flows into the business, it's going to be a task, because the sales, as we understand, in the next 1 year will be down to only 15% of the actual demand. Because as I have said, real estate is right on top of the pyramid. Nobody is going to take a decision to buy an apartment of 50 lakhs when he is not sure whether he will retain his job, when he is not sure, what kind of pay cuts will come through. So nobody is going to take a call at this moment. Then Manglo, if we realize, we have a huge NRI demand. It's not only the local demand which we cater to, but we have a huge demand from the NRIs, specifically from the Gulf region. Now that demand has been completely devastated. The Gulf region relies on the crude oil market. Crude has completely collapsed. Last month, the crude oil price in the international market had even touched negative rates. Like, you pay to store the crude. That was the situation. Right now, the crude oil price is running at half the value of pre-COVID rates. Now, at this valuations of crude oil, the Gulf economy is going to go through a severe crisis. And we all have read in the newspapers that for the last few months, whosoever job visas are over in the Gulf region, they are not renewing the job visas. Forget about new hiring. Even the existing people from this region working in the Gulf, they are going to come back. And the worry is from the negative factor, because many of these people working in the Gulf region have already booked their apartments in the last year or a year before that. Now they are not going to be in a position to pay their EMIs because they have lost their jobs. How are they going to pay the EMIs? So we'll have a lot of delinquencies in from the purchasers. We have liquidity issues. Loan restructuring is not happening, and the absence of demand will be the longest for the real estate industry. It should take minimum a year before we see even a trickling of the demand. So it's challenging time, and the challenges are equally severe when we talk about the commercial real estate. With IT getting onto the bandwagon of work from home culture. So a lot of commercial real estate space will fall vacant in larger cities, and we may be looking at the existing construction which may not suit the work at home culture. So what happens is, in a real estate industry, you can't make changes inside your apartment that easily. But if it's a 2-bedroom apartment, you can't add an office at home. It's very difficult to add one office at home unless and until you want to sacrifice one bedroom. So whatever is under construction in the new environment may not suit the purchasers, and new stock may have to come up with new designs where demand may not be coming in a hurry. So it's a chicken and egg situation. What comes first, the demand or the new design or the new product? These are very challenging times. Builders are at a loss. How to sell the existing available stock, how to redesign their ongoing projects to suit the new kind of a socio-culture which will be emerging, and what happens to the commercial stock they have. Look at the malls. Every single tenant in a mall is today talking of reducing rents by 25% to 50%. What's going to happen to the malls? How are they going to be even sustainable? Because even at the current rental values, with the very high real estate costings, malls have become almost uneconomical, unviable. And with the reduction in the rents, if they come through, which there is no other option for the mall owners but to reduce the rents for the time being, it will become unviable. Many of the malls will shut down. Look at the malls in Mangalore. Malls employ, as a direct employment, each mall employs almost around 2,000 people. What happens to their jobs? So it's a huge challenge, be it a commercial sector or a residential sector. and real estate sector will be the last to recover.
I have one point to make on that, Mr. Mehta. A lot of we are talking about migrant labor at the unskilled level perhaps, or at the semi-skilled level. But when you come to the skilled level, like for instance techies, a lot of them actually have migrated from various states to our state and to our city perhaps. And most of them work in these offices in Bangalore and wherever the tech offices are. Now, with this new culture that you are talking about, there are two issues. They will go back to their houses wherever they are, from whichever states they are, and they can easily work from there. That's number one. The second part of it is they are the ones who used to give the footfalls to the malls, a lot of them. Now, if that is also away from, they are back in their states, the footfalls to the malls also will drop. So that is an additional challenge. And I think there lies the rub actually.
No, see, first level of change will happen within the city. So like in Bangalore, what will happen is many people working in the IT sector, they chose their residential accommodation close to the place of work, even if it was causing inconvenience to the family. Because in Bangalore, we all know the travel time is too much. You know, if you are even 15 kilometers away from your office. So the whole concept of accommodation was close to the place of work. Now, what will happen in Bangalore, and so as in other cities, that all those who have accommodations, you know, close to place of work, which would be a very high priced accommodation, so they would have compromised in terms of the size of the apartment to buy an apartment close to the place of work. Now they would shift within the same city from place of work to maybe 15 to 20 kilometers away, where the real estate is a little cheaper. They can buy a larger apartment, maybe a 3-bedroom apartment, maybe an independent house, and that shift will happen within the city. I don't see immediately a shift happening from a larger city to a smaller city. That may take another 5 years, because the first thing is, you know, the companies and the employee both should be comfortable with this culture of work from home. And right now, the concept which has been emerging is a hub and spoke kind of a concept for the IT companies. That is, you have a small central office, and you have in different directions of a city smaller offices. So people living in one region can at least once a week or twice a week visit the local offices available. So even the centralized way of IT companies working, that itself will have a change. But that change will not happen from, you know, metro cities to tier 2 or tier 3 cities. So I don't see that happening immediately. What will happen with this is there will be excess stock of apartments in high value locations, which is in the heart of the city, because many would be wanting to sell those flats and move to the suburbs of a big city. And there will be some demand in the suburbs, because new demand will get created, and this demand will have to be catered by a new design of an apartment, because in each of these apartments you will need a home office. So the existing stock will not be catering to the new design so easily. So there will be a shift in the way the businesses are done and the way apartments are designed and constructed. But looking at the benefit for a city like Mangalore, as of now, we don't see any benefit coming out of this.
Okay. Kiran, I think you've been listening to to Mr. Isaac and Mr. Mehta very quietly.
Yes.
And yesterday, as a matter of fact, I was just telling Mr. Isaac, I had gone to the bank, and I had gone to the bank for some other purpose, and standing next to me was a couple. They were a retired couple, and they seemed to be arguing with the officer in charge there about their fixed deposit rates of interest. The rates of interest have dropped drastically from, I think, even January to April. And they were asking the officer concerned how they would live, because the rates of interest have dropped so drastically, and probably it was their savings. Now, industry has to survive, it needs liquidity, as Mr. Mehta said, and to that extent the governor of the RBI yesterday has reduced the repo rate, so the liquidity will increase in the banks, and they are supposed to lend. But will they lend? I think they are all running scared now. They were running scared even before COVID because of the various scams that have taken place and the NPAs that were mounting. But right now, they are even more scared perhaps. Now, how do you see this playing out? Now, the industry requires liquidity, it requires funds, it requires, it has run out of collateral basically, and the consumption part of it. People really do not have money in their pocket, as Mr. Mehta said, and they will not take a decision in this condition to purchase anything. So, what is your take on it?
I fully endorse the views of Mr. Mehta and Mr. Isaac. I have a different perception of the whole thing. I feel, see, when the pandemic broke out, we were thinking about how to survive. Wear masks, take precaution, wash your hands, stay at home, fine. Once you get through this, which will happen, definitely humanity has survived all kinds of pandemics in the past. This also will go on. Now, the question is how we survive next. Everybody seems to be looking at the problem. So if you open the TV, it's only the problem that is discussed. If you look at the newspaper, it's only the problem that is discussed. You look at WhatsApp, the kind of messages that spread, it's all so cynical. Now, I think we need to have a change in the mindset first, because, see, humanity has to face changes every time. There is going to be a change. This time the change is too severe, and the ones who can adapt to the change will definitely succeed. You were talking about that bank couple that you went in. See, I am not supposed to strictly disclose the information I go for audits, what happens. But let me share the observations we have made other than the audit, with the transactions of the bank. Well, like DB Mehta said, we never had a problem of looking into NRE accounts, NRE loans, housing loans and all that. We never looked into us. They were always, strong accounts, perfect assets, never in the NPA categories. But we have now seen a shift of NRE accounts moving into NPA assets. Scared. Really very scared. I spoke to a couple of bank managers. The government has come forward and the banks have come forward to give loans to businessmen, sending in hana break. In fact, one of our clients got a call. They said, no, I don't want the loan. People are scared even to take the loans. It's true, okay? Because how are they going to repay? They're thinking like that. How are they going to repay also? Now, we need to understand that the definition of a necessity, the definition of an essential, the definition of a comfort, the definition of luxury is going to change drastically. Okay? So we need to look at what are the possible solutions of conserving what we have. Conserving resources is the one thing that we need. Okay? First, then how do we move on from there? Now, this is a very difficult task. I think the media will have a very important role to play. Instead of conveying more cynicism, I think we need to focus on experts to give us solutions, to see what can be done, to tell them that please cut your expenditure to essentials. What is required, you do it now, make more savings and keep going. Because the entire thing is a cycle. One affects the other affects the other, like someone said earlier, the chicken and the egg story, which is so true, The government on its part has given some concessions. They're not really reliefs, because see, in the moratorium period, you don't have to pay the loan or the interest, but the interest is still there. You have to pay it sometime or the other. It is just a temporary kind of a relief, a cushion given to you. But the problem still exists. From the income tax angle, they have extended all dates to a long time to make it more comfortable for people to file returns. But that was never a problem. They are ready to file the returns. The problem was paying taxes. Where are they going to get the liquidity to pay taxes? Because what they have earned is in the books, but the tax actual accruals cannot be met. Okay? The Companies Act, they have made some adjustments. They have removed those draconian measures of jailing for non-disclosure of certain things on CSR, etc. That has been reduced. SEBI came out with some requirements of disclosure next year, about this current year, that is, about post-COVID situations of companies, where some companies will have to even now look at, auditors will have to look at the going concern concept. There's a concept called going concern in business, where we have to look at the auditor, the client, the auditee, from an angle of whether they can sustain this business or not. And I think this time this will come into the picture more than ever before. So on the whole, yes, the future looks a little too disastrous, if I can use that word. We have to start working on solutions very quickly. And that will happen with trying to say that there is hope. Remember, Japan, post the World War II, fell so bad, but within 25 years, they survived it so well. They proved to be real good leaders of the economies. So there must be some hope. And I'm sure that our country will be looked upon by others. But having said all this, what is the solution remains a question. It depends from case to case basis, industry wise basis. And the government has to take a little more measures on this angle. But I wouldn't like to be in the shoes of the government also, because how can they handle such a situation? Even this is unprecedented. So the question still remains that we, the people who are a little knowledgeable, need to figure out solutions which are individual, tailor-made solutions for individuals, and see that we can help one another as much as possible. That is more important right now. Humanity is the call right now, more than anything else.
I just wanted to come back to Isaac one last time. We are in the media industry, newskarnataka.com, and I speak to a lot of people. And what I find from my conversations with so many people is that compromise is very important. Now there are people who own a building. There are people who are paying rent. The people who own the building want the rent because they need to survive. The people who are paying the rent, they also need to survive, but they do not have the income. Somewhere or the other, they need to reach a compromise. There is also the problem with workers. They have not worked in the last 3 months, perhaps, or 2 months, yet they have to be sustained if they have to come back to work. Otherwise, they will look for other opportunities. I think the whole scenario looking for a compromise. So, Isaac, what do you have to say on that?
I fully agree with you. The whole situation we can change only by compromise. If you are a tenant, you speak to your landlord and explain to him the position. Same wise, if you are a landlord, see that what kind of position you are, what the position is of your tenant. Now, I am in a council of other institutions like, Jaipur workshop and other things where we always have received already a lot of letters saying that we are not able to pay our rent in time. So we have, as a landlord, we have to take that middle path and see that our tenants survive. Basically, it is for our own good if they survive, because we don't have to go into any bitter legal or arbitration situations with them. So everybody has to do their bit, understand the present situation. As I said in the beginning, this is a sovereign lockdown. This is not a tenant's problem or a landlord's problem.
Okay. So I think compromise is the way forward, and working with each other is the solution. I would like to thank each one of you for joining me on this show. It's been a very enlightening discussion, and I'm sure it will be for our viewers. If any one of our viewers is in industry, they will understand this discussion very much, I'm sure, and will take the positives out of it. And I think other than COVID-19 positive, all other positives are good. I think it's like a battery. The positive, there has to be a negative if the positive has to work. So we have to take the negatives and work with them to become positive. So thank you very much, Isaac, Mr. Mehta, and Kiran. Thank you very much for contributing to the show, and we'll meet again sometime.